Hello, everyone. Welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host, Liam, aka Himbar, and today I have a short weekly update for you. I'm actually recording this a little early, but I finished 4 books already, and I thought I'd just get it out there, but it's going to come out at the same time it normally does. I am going to be out of town a good chunk of this next weekend. My weekend is not Saturday and Sunday, but and so I'm not sure if I'll get a Wednesday video out. Um, so I don't have anything particularly in mind, and I'm going to have decently less filming time. So if I think of something, I'll let you know, and you'll just see it on Wednesday. But real quick, I did a good amount of reading this week, and so I just wanted to go over that real quick. The 4 books I finished, I guess I'll start with the first one. I think I finished this first, for sure, yeah. So Daughter of the Bright Moon by Lynn Abbey, which I think has like kind of a middling cover. Like I kind of like it. The guy in the background doesn't look that great, but the horse looks awesome. And then Rifkind here, the main character, looks pretty good too. This is good. It's not like great. It's not amazing. It doesn't feel. I don't know. It's not as good as some of Abby's other stuff. It feels very much more in line with Sword and Sorcery than Abby's later stuff does. But it's good. It is interesting how it kind of just goes. It's very interesting for the main character. Actually, the main character is like, so she's not like invincible, right? Which I like, right? She's not like one of those like, she's a fighter and so she's just as powerful as the men or whatever, right? No, she has her talents, right? And she actually is primarily a healer, and then kind of considered a witch in the lands that she goes into, and it's interesting. And the bad guy is a sorcerer though, and there's like no, yeah, I don't know. It's like there's no love interest, even though there's like a character that would be like an obvious love interest, and they're just friends, right? So like it's kind of refreshing in that sense. I do think I was really afraid actually that it would be bad, right? Because it's the first book by Lynn Abbey, and for some reason I still hold like reservations about Abbey. Like I think I explained this probably last week. My first book I ever read by Abbey, I really was not impressed when I read it. I was very disappointed with it for whatever reason. But then afterwards, I thought about that book a lot and decided I wanted to read more. And I always really enjoy reading Abby now, though she doesn't really read like any other author that I read, right? Hence why I was not impressed that first time because I was expecting something else. Essentially, I think the way she handles characters is really different, and I think it's done pretty well. And I really like it. I really like the mood that she brings, and so you still get that here, actually. This debut of hers. She came out with the sequel, I found out the year after this, so 1980. And then the sequel after that is like much later, is like in the aughts. So Abby is still alive. She doesn't really write anymore, as far as I'm aware. Her last novel probably came out in like 2006 or something like that. She has been getting stuff like Thieves World published like on ebook and some in audiobook as well, but she doesn't really write anymore, sadly. So, but um, I did enjoy this. It was good. Not some fluke of her husband being published, which probably did help. Though actually, what helped is that it has a blurb here by Gordon R. Dixon, who's a guy I've never actually read, and he's very much not popular these days. But was probably more popular in the '70s. She was like the driver for him, or like picked him up from the airport or whatever for like a convention, and based off that conversation, which I think a lot of people probably don't realize, that a lot of these people getting published is kind of just knowing the right people in some ways, networking, which not entirely. You should still be a good writer, right? You know what I mean? But I do think stuff like that helps. It depends on what kind of publisher you're going into, of course, because an agent is not gonna like sell your book just because he likes you or whatever. But anyways, but I mean, I say this saying that like the blurbs I got from my book, for example, it is a self-published book, right? Obviously, but the blurbs I got from that book is because I know all 4 of those people that blurbed the book, right? They're not just random people to me. So, anyways, and also it has some really good art throughout the book, which I really enjoyed. So, interior art that really brings the story kind of to life. So, yeah, kind of psychedelic almost looking, but it's good. It's good stuff. Um, Show another one. So yeah, anyways, good. I don't have copies of books 2 or 3, so I don't know when I'll read those, but I would like to. Besides that, I finished, let's see, 3 more books. None of which I have physically. So I read Perils of the Past by Kane Williams, which is a self-pub book, I think, that's coming out in May, I believe. And it was fine. I was not a big fan of it. I was just kind of waiting to be drawn into it, and it never happened. It was fast-paced, which I can really appreciate, but I just wasn't. I never connected with those characters. Every other like early review I've seen of it is pretty positive. Um, and so that's good, I guess, for the author. I just can't help but be honest and just say I just really didn't dig it. Like the characters really just didn't work for me, and the plot was okay, but without me liking the characters, the plot doesn't really matter that much, right? Like, well, I can appreciate a plot, you know what I mean? But if it's just like I know pretty much kind of how this is gonna end, anyways, like if I don't actually care about the ride of the characters, then it's less important. That's not entirely the case, right? Because plot is different depending on what type of book you're telling. But this is very much a modern fantasy book, very much focused on the characters. Focus a little bit on world building, though. The world building is handled rather well, actually. It's not done in exposition at all. Though I didn't really get a great feeling for it either. In some ways, I felt like it was too swift. How this storytelling is supposed to be fast paced, right? But I mean, I write fast paced stuff, So I mean, like, and it doesn't read like my stuff at all. So I mean, there's a lot of ways, obviously, to go about writing fast paced stuff. So anyways, it was okay. I'm not sure if anyone on BookTube's gonna really look at it. I like the cover of it, to be honest. That's what tipped me off to it. When I was looking at NetGalley just to go through, it's been several months. I actually got an email from him saying, "Oh, it's been a while. Come review books." And I was like, "Okay." And so I've gotten accepted for like 5 books now, sent to me, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, I gotta read these now." So, but yeah, it was fine. The other 2 books I read was In the Ruins by Kate Elliott, which I did on audio. I don't have physically. I think I have the first 4 books physically. So I did 5 on audio and 6. This is 6, and then I'll probably do 7 on audio. Never get a chance. I want to finish it up and then maybe get a chance to finish up Malazan. But I really feel like I have the. I really want to feel like I have the time because those are longer books, right? And I hate hanging myself up on longer books, in a sense. So, In the Ruins, I actually really enjoyed. I know a lot of people think it's like a weaker spot in the series, and that the reason is because there's actually no climax and there's really no conclusion to the book, because it's actually just the first half. It was supposed to be 6 books. Actually, it was supposed to be shorter, but essentially, she finally wrote this last book, and it was too big. Finally, too big for the publishers. And they're like, we're not publishing this monstrosity, so she split it in half, which happens, right? Like Ashes of Man and Kingdom of Death were one book by Christopher Rocchio. And other ones. And so she split it, and a lot of people don't like that, but I really like it. I like how it gets things going. It's in some ways it's kind of like Knife of Dreams, or maybe even more so like The Gathering Storm, in real time, because it has not so much of a conclusion. It's just getting the ball rolling again, pretty much, and I really like that because while I like book 5, I think it was getting more towards the end. Books 3 and 4 really lagged for me, while books 1 and 2 were good. And so it's nice to be finally building up to that, and we're going to get all the stuff happening in book 7 to conclude the series. So I'm looking forward to that. Part of the reason I wanted to read more by her, though, or finish that series, because another one of the books I got from NetGalley actually is The Witch Roads. So I'll go over the other book I read in a minute. But The Witch Roads, I'm barely into this one. It actually starts with a woman who's a courier with her nephew, who's like having to make a decision on what career he wants to take, which is really similar to The Boy Who Became a Jackrabbit by Charles Stanford. And that's my favorite book of the year so far. This is going to be very different from that, I can already tell. But it's just funny that this courier thing about a boy deciding what he wants to do with like a older mentor type of character is what this book starts, right? Because that's how The Boy Who Became a Jackrabbit starts as well. And this is much longer than that. So we'll see. I'm again really not far into it at all. But it is first in a duology. The Witch Roads duology, I think, is what's just being called right now. And this one comes out in June, I think, and the second one comes out like November. So they're both coming out this year. Which for people I don't understand, but people who like to have a series complete, then you don't have to worry about that pretty much. Even though you're hurting authors by not buying their books. But anyways, this is actually what happens is because authors don't sell enough, that the series might not even be completed in itself. I can think of one series, pretty much DJ Butler's Witchy War series, which has 4 books out. It's supposed to have 6, and it's not because Butler can't write the book like he's Patrick Rothfuss or George R. R. Martin. It's because there's not enough money to write the books, pretty much, for the publisher, unless the other books sell more. So, which is a shame. They're really good books. So we'll see. But anyways, the last book I finished before I get again, I'm reading a lot, so I'm trying to make this quicker than I am. But I finished Knight's Master by Tanith Lee. It was short. That's one of the reasons I decided to read this one. I liked the Birthgrave. I liked parts of it. There was a lot of parts that I just felt like it was really long. It felt really long. So like I really liked the first, maybe not even the beginning parts, but like maybe the very beginning parts, and then not so much the parts after that, and then more middling parts, and then not a lot of stuff after that, and then the end I liked, right? So there's a lot I didn't care for, and so it was just but it was nice to read this book, which I felt like was more consistent overall. Now, I had some aspects of it that really weirded me out, okay, and it was the sexual aspects of the book. Very much in 70s type of fantasy that I would expect. It's funny, you get into 80s fantasy, and it's very different, right? You see the success of the Sword of Shannara in the late 70s, and then suddenly 80s fantasy is often much more derivative of like D&D-esque, Tolkien-esque, or Tolkien-esque. It really doesn't hit Tolkien at all, but it's trying to. Or it's a mixture, right? Something like the Starhawk and Sunwolf books, for example, even David Gemmell a little bit feel like a bit of a mixture, right? And you're getting those in the 80s, right? Mixture of that fantasy that's coming up and through the 70s, right? And then this other stuff, right? That's more Tolkien-esque stuff. Anyways, I'm just talking too much. But Knight's Master, it's pretty much like more like the Arabian Nights. It's a bunch of short stories, but they are connected. And there is one main character, but he's really not the main character in like any of the short stories. And he's the demon prince, Azrarn, and they're good. It's very interesting actually how it all works out. But it's very interesting how it's told too, because it almost feels like you could read a summary and you'd get the gist of the book. Except for you'd be missing just Tanith Lee's beautiful writing, and so. That's a very interesting one, and it's very fantastic. It's very mythopoeic almost. Feels almost reading like fables. And it was very beautiful at times, very odd, very grotesque, very heartbreaking at times. Just a little too much like the sexual stuff. Like there's rape. There's like women getting pregnant from like trees and stuff. There is a dwarf thing sleeping with a giant spider demon. The weirdest one is actually in the very opening of the book, right? Okay, and so Tanith Lee in the newer edition actually prefaces saying the characters in this world are pretty much bisexual, like they don't actually have like a preference, I guess. And then she even hints at the spider thing. I'm like, what the heck? But what the weirdest thing is that pretty much this child is raised by this demon, and then he ends up becoming best friends and lovers with this boy while he's still like 16 or something like that, maybe 15. I think 16, right? So it's just like weird because it's just like the homosexuality of it's not the weird part. It's just like the weird grooming bit of it. And so like that's like, but overall the book is fine. It just has this weird stuff in it, which again doesn't really hurt the book for me that much. It's just a little odd at times. It's a little much. It's just kind of funny, but not bad. Tanith Lee is an interesting author. I really don't know what more I'll read from her, but maybe more of these flat Earth stuff. I have one flat Earth book by her, but it's the most recent one. The Earth is Flat that came out just a couple years ago. So I don't even remember what the book is that is after Knight's Master. So anyways, those are the 4 books I read. Perils of the Past, Daughter of the Bright Moon, In the Ruins, Knight's Master. And I already mentioned The Witch Roads by Kate Elia that I'm in the middle of reading. I'm also pretty far into Barbara Hamley's Dark Hand of Magic, which is book 3 in Sunwolf and Starhawk. There are actually several novelettes after this that are not collected in any collection. Mostly, I think they were just published digitally. One was in like a Bane anthology or whatever, but I might read those because I want more of these characters. And they're kind of sword and sorceress. Again, they're kind of that blend, but really enjoyable. This book is great so far, and I really enjoyed Ladies of Mandragon. I enjoyed Witches of Windshar last year even more than Ladies of Mandragon. So Dark Hand of Magic, also really good. Enjoying it a lot. Like I said, I'm a little over halfway through with this one. And then another book I am reading that I'm not very far into. I'm only a little over 100 pages in, and I've read almost all of this on Monday. is To Ride Hell's Chasm by Janie Wertz. And it's not bad. I'm enjoying it. It's not like super gripping. It's not blowing me away. It does not feel like Sword and Sorcery. It has some elements that are kind of there, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't feel like Sword and Sorcery. And I've seen people say it is before, which is why I mentioned this out the gate. But I am enjoying it. I've read only one book by Wertz before, and that was Master of White Storm, which I thought was okay. So waiting to see pretty much however I gauge this is going to gauge if and when I ever read War of Light and Shadow or whatever. I really am not a huge fan of big fantasy series. I think that is just one of the bigger problems of fantasy, that you have books themselves which are too big. They're bloated, and it's a problem, I think. And then just expanding that into a series really doesn't help. And so that's one of the reasons I don't read as much epic fantasy these days, because the hell, I don't need to waste my time like that. So the last book I'm reading, though, because again, it's taking forever, is Magician, actually. So, and I should say, actually, that book, Barbara Hamley, Jerry, my buddy Jerry, gave that to me. Also gave me these, Magician, Apprentice and Master. Actually, I don't have neither of these. I had a copy of Magician already. I've had this for several years and not read it. And now I think these are out of print, actually. These are out of print too, but I could probably find the matching sets for the next two books pretty easily. This is like a young adults, like UK edition I bought from Book Depository before that got shut down. I should have bought books 2 and 3. I didn't know I was going to read this, of course, though. Very interesting cover. I like. It's very different than all the other ones. But I'm not very far into it. I'm actually reading it more from this more manageable size, and I'm only a little over 100 pages in. So it's very interesting, though. I knew kind of going into it that it's kind of mashing. It's kind of Tolkien-esque, but what's interesting is actually it's D&D-esque. It's more inspired by Weiss's D&D campaigns. And this came out in 82, I think, so this would be before pretty much all other D&D fiction. Not quite all, but almost all of it. It'd be before Dragonlance, which is the first big one for D&D. And it's also a kind of a mixing of Tecumel, another tabletop role-playing game that's not nearly as popular, but I should say the guy who did Tecumel is much more comparable to like Tolkien. He was a linguist, and he did a lot of work in his world building with his languages. Though his world, Tecumel, is much more Southeast Asian inspired, Southern Asian inspired, and it is very different. Tabletop role-playing games really not that popular. And again, the books for Tecumel actually came out after Magician came out. I believe 84 was when the first book came out. I think it was the same year the first Dragonlance book came out. And I actually read that recently. I'll have a review out for that probably in a couple months still. But so yeah, I am enjoying Magician, though. I am enjoying it. It's pretty straightforward in a lot of ways, besides the fact that it's kind of D&D smashed together with Tecumel. But that's not super generic, actually. That's not like terribly far out there, but it's not terribly generic either. So I'm enjoying it. Those are the books I'm reading. This is way too long. I got one book this week. It's the last book I need for class, which is okay, I could just go on and on, okay? I didn't take a class last semester because I couldn't make it work. Normally in the classes I need to take, these philology classes, they only offer one a semester, and there's a session on Mondays when I don't work, so I can take them, and there's a session on Thursday or Friday, when I do work, and I can't really get them to fit in. And the one I wanted to take, the philology class last semester, was on Thursday, and I couldn't take it at all. It didn't fit in my schedule at all. And then this semester, there are only one session again, and it's on Friday, and it's at 6 o'clock. I'm still at work at 6 o'clock. And my work refuses. They refuse to let me use my time off that I have. They let me take work off an hour early so I can go to class. So instead, they want me to get occurrences. So at the end of the semester, I'd have 6 occurrences. I get fired at 6.5. So my work wants to punish me for trying to go to school, and it's really stressing me out. I honestly don't know what to do about it. It means I can't do that for 2 semesters in a row. I don't know if those Monday sessions are going to come back. I guess maybe there's enough enrollment, but I might not actually take this class, is what I'm saying, because I kind of can't lose my job. But I don't want to work there anyways. That's why I'm going to school. So it's very frustrating. But that is not what I'm here to bother you about. And hopefully no one from my work is watching this, but they should do better, actually. That is embarrassing. You shouldn't change your policies to hurt your employees. You should change your policies to help your employees and to help yourself, of course. There it is. They are there for the business, right, side of things. But I mean, I hope policy writing before it is possible to do good stuff rather than to be stiff about it and hurt your employees for no reason. So, anyways, obviously you can tell I'm not very happy about this. Which, yeah. Anyways, I'll stop now though. But otherwise, it's been nice and sunny, and I'm very blessed, and I love my family. And I got some good reading. So, what have you been reading?